afternoon, everybody, and thank you for still joining us in our Insight sessions this afternoon. I think this is probably one of the topics that excites me the most because I am truly a believer that visibility precedes everything. So, with me on the couch this afternoon, I've got two gentlemen. I've got Kemal and I've got Lindsay, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves as to what they do with us in our organization. Lindsay, you want to go first?
Sure, thanks, Corinne. So I lead the SE team for ThousandEyes across Asia Pac. Originally, I was actually a customer of the platform about 10 years ago, before the acquisition with Cisco. And then when I made my way back to Australia, the business was starting up and came on as an SE, and then I've grown the organization over time and been pre-acquisition and then gone through the acquisition as well and seen the growth. It's been really exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And Kemal.
Hi, my name is Kemal Sanjta. I am principal internet analyst at ThousandEyes, as part of which my job is to analyze large-scale outages that affect our customers, and then we produce either blog posts or detailed analysis about what really happened and how can we help and what's the visibility that we bring. I come from the network engineering background. For more than the last decade, I was network engineer for some of large-scale companies such as AWS, Facebook, and others.
When we look at our industry at the moment, we really are challenged with how distributed it is. We some people say we are working from home, some people say we are living at work, and in the presence of all of this, we're still trying to maintain a corporate network. So give me a bit of a take as to how do you see this world of distributed networks?
Yeah, sure. Shall I start? Okay. I think one of the key things at the moment is that in the past, the enterprise perimeter was very clearly defined as four walls within the organization's control. So you had your spoke sites, you had the data center. In a lot of cases, there was no internet egress. All of the traffic was staying, within the enterprise network on MPLS, and all of the applications were owned and controlled by the organization. Obviously, in today's world, not only is the enterprise perimeter essentially from anywhere, but also workers themselves want to work from anywhere. And there's many benefits from a productivity perspective, from a satisfaction and a flexibility perspective, but that comes with its own challenges as well to essentially provide optimal experience as well as security, whether that user is sitting in a hotel or in their corporate environment or from their home office. And it really changes the whole dynamic of scalability, the different parties that are involved in that, because now it's not just your IT team, it's a myriad of different third parties that are delivering those services, whether it be a cloud vendor or a software vendor, or maybe it's the intermediary service provider on the internet in between your own ISP and then the cloud vendor. There's so many different variables that really require assurance and visibility to deliver that optimal experience.
And yes, in fact, like some analysis are showing that 22% of the workforce by the end of this year, which is almost done, are going to engage in working from home permanently, which is quite fascinating. So obviously, this security perimeter that used to be usually located at the corporate office now has moved elsewhere, and that can be your home, that can be your co-working space and stuff like that. So the real question is, how do you observe all of that, and how do you secure your employees? So those are the big questions now.
Now, when we look at visibility, it's in some instances not new to our industry. I'm almost certain you gentlemen can talk me through a little bit. What are the trends? So when we look at visibility as a discipline, enriching what we do from a security perspective, what are the glaring trends that we can share with our audience this afternoon?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that we've seen in the past is that it used to be a find and fix methodology. So all of the assets were under the control of the organization. You could essentially observe and capture packets anywhere across that pipe, and you knew from A to B where everything was going. That doesn't work in today's world because those packets, once they leave the perimeter, it's outside of your control. So there's very little that you can do to really control that and assure it. And a new breed of visibility solution, i.e. ThousandEyes, that's basically why the platform has been invented and why it continues to be adopted by so many customers. It solves for that very problem. And in today's world, you have one key metric for businesses is mean time to remediation or mean time to repair, but equally, it's also mean time to identification or, in a lot of cases, mean time to innocence. Because in those war room scenarios, it used to essentially be the teams or the personnel within the organization, but now you might have 50 to 100 people from different vendors and different internal teams all trying to diagnose and find this problem. And with their point solutions, they see the little part that they manage or that they're responsible for. And really, to remediate that, you need a solution that's going to give you that end-to-end picture so you can find where that issue is and who owns the problem.
Exactly.
And I guess how you'd summarize that is evidence and escalation.
But yeah, out of all of this, MTTR is the big one. Like
Yes,
if you speak
correct.
to the decision makers at the large enterprise companies, the thing that you're going to speak the most about is MTTR. How quickly can you isolate where the issue is? And this is core of what we do at ThousandEyes, right? Like in general, like, as a network engineers, when we speak about the issues, usually when networking is working fine, it works fine, right? Like there are no problems. However, when it breaks, you know, the harder the hardest problem is actually identifying where it happened, and this is very common. So providing MTTR for the large enterprise customers is at core of what we do, and having this in a tool set of for the operators, SREs, DevOps engineers is I believe at this stage must have.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm a thorough believer that visibility and quite pervasive visibility precedes any security action. We can't protect what we can't see. Now, when we look at our distributed workforce, you know, historically, security has been, let's say, perceived as possibly a stumbling block for users or something that really a friction point in the process. Now, what are the implications when the user has got a different experience to what we're seeing from a network perspective?
Yeah, so essentially, when we speak about security, like the best case scenario is that security is transparent. End users should not ever see anything that's happening and that impedes the way they do their work, right? So if you think about it, it definitely plays a big role when it comes to satisfaction of the workers, like how quickly they can reach the resource that they are, supposed to reach for doing the job effectively. And given the fact that this trend, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, started happening as a result of which more people are working from home, happened, right? It's going to be critical for the retention also of these people to actually provide them with a really good experience at the same time. So if you have like something on the pod, such as firewall that's misbehaving or secure services edge appliance that's not working the way it should be, you know, um, operators that are on the receiving side of these incidents, if they don't have visibility, they are essentially their hands are tied when it comes to how and what they should look at, or potentially to identify where those problems are. So this is why visibility actually plays a role. So if the security is not transparent, we are probably failing.
With a tool like Thousand Eyes, and I really want our listeners to understand that, what are the actionables that we put in the hand of the user when you say it leaves their network? What is the visibility that we can really empower them with once the traffic is now out of their control in the traditional sense of the way?
So sure, I can take that one. So for example, there was a big paradigm shift that happened sometime like 10 years ago, as part of which a lot of what we used to do at our own data centers is now switching to cloud. So we are now speaking about cloud as our new data center. At the same time, what happened is that applications that we used to deploy on-prem are now moving towards the software as a service model or infrastructure as a service, right? And lastly, like we have this hybrid work as part of which people are working from home. So like there are significant changes. And if you think about it, common thing across all of these, whether you are speaking to cloud or sending packets to cloud, or whether you are using software as a service application, or if you are working from home, the common thing there is internet, right? So having proper visibility through internet is essential. Now, when it comes to some numbers, for example, 40% of enterprises, per some analysis that we received, are going to have a van as the only transport by 2025. So it does not surprise when we hear that by 2025, 65% of enterprises are going to invest in SD-WAN solutions. Now, if we think about the SD-WAN as a technology, it's really powerful, right? It makes sure that uh, unreliable medium such as internet is, that we get the best treatment, that we get like most preferred packet routing and stuff like that. However, it also obfuscates the visibility, right? So for example, if you think about it, all of a sudden, like what used to be 5 networking hubs, now it's a point-to-point link, which hides because we are using some kind of encapsulation, be it the VXLAN, be it GRE tunnels, or whatever the solution that you are using is using, right? So what we can provide in this sense is actually visibility into underlay. So we can quite clearly and quite easily expose what is the underlying condition that's contributing to the suboptimal VXLAN, for example, or SD-WAN experience. And that's what we bring to the table. But other than that, like at the core of the company is figuring out what's happening with the packet loss, what's happening with latency, how are the prefixes being propagated on the internet, whether someone is trying to hijack our prefixes and stuff like that. So all of that plays a crucial role for all of these personnel, be it SRE engineers, DevOps, network reliability engineers, when it comes to ensuring that the end users are getting the best experience that they can.
Yeah, and I think essentially, if you're looking at the detail that we have on the slide and all the different variables, what this culminates to is a digital ecosystem haystack. And what we provide is the ability to rapidly find where's the needle in that haystack. And then, very important in today's world, who owns that needle? Who does the user need to speak to have that problem resolved, whether it be the internal service desk or, in today's world, it could just be their ISP. And they're the only ones who can really, dialogue or get in dialogue with that ISP to have that problem resolved. And what we'll give them is the evidence to get that issue fixed.
Absolutely, and I think it really ties back to what you started off with, saying not only do we have our own complex environment, but we have this network of service providers on the peripheral
Yeah.
that we are so highly reliant on to make the user experience seamless that it puts us in on the back foot slightly when we look at these things. Now, I want to ask you a bit of maybe a trick question. Lindsay, what is the aha moment for clients when you showcase ThousandEyes? What is the junction point where they sit up and go, I didn't know we could do that? I want you to share with our audience this afternoon, what are the aha moments that you experience when you showcase ThousandEyes to our clients?
Yeah, I think for me, probably the aha moment is when the client realizes the power of the data. And what I mean by that is that their expectation coming in when they don't know about the platform is that it's probably akin or similar to something they've used in the past. And once we get through, the pitch and we actually get into the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts and use the platform, inevitably some kind of issue will happen. And to Kemal's point, it could be some maybe one of their applications is completely unavailable. It becomes a P1, and the first thing that they do is blame the network. That's always the default response. But what actually might be in that case is that the network team, who's really used to trying to prove their their innocence and go through that problem for days, they get the data in minutes, and then they share that with the party that's involved in that problem, whether it be the software vendor or maybe the ISP, and then they see the problem resolved because the data, it can't be argued with. It's showing you where the problem is. And what we've seen that's really beneficial is that it also creates this kind of collaborative dynamic where initially the third party is like, oh wow, how do you actually have that kind of visibility? But really what it's doing is it's getting the application back and available as fast as possible. So it gives the best outcome for everyone involved.
And for example, what also tends to happen is that we have insight correlation capabilities, right? So for example, if you are monitoring certain resource and there's a performance dip on that particular resource, right? We can overlay it with a different view that shows exactly on the same timeline, you know, one resource dipped, the other one spiked, you know, at the same time, which actually leads you to root cause analysis in a moment, right? You are like straight away, like we have a dip in performance, we have a spike in packet loss, and people tend to really like that. Like that, very easy, very quick to identify, timely correlation between two different events that contribute to same outcome.
I can absolutely understand that if you have the opportunity to put a tool in hand for clients that reduce your mean time to identify, your mean time to remediate, we really have an opportunity to, reduce a lot of friction. But what I'm hearing out of what are you saying, and as a closing comment on this afternoon, I can see how ThousandEyes can really help clients not only have a security view and a visibility, but also have an opportunity to optimize. Do you want to talk to me a little bit in terms of how they can optimize some of their operational flows and some of their network capabilities with what they see out of the data?
Sure. So one of the good examples about exactly what you spoke about is the fact that just recently we published what we call VAN Insights. And if you think about what I just recently said about the ever increasing trend towards the SD-WAN, because companies and organizations are going towards the WAN as the primary mean of reaching the targets, right? Instead of like taking MPLS clouds or renting the dark fibers and stuff like that. Having VAN Insights, as part of which machine learning and artificial intelligence is giving you a signal on what you should do predictably. Now, this is a really important point. All of this is predictable. So we are analyzing behavior over time, and we are predictably saying that certain WAN interface is going to have better performance for certain type of the applications. That means a lot to customers, right? The other thing is like what we really need to point out is the fact that all of what we are offering is completely consumable by various APIs. So, for example, if you are a company and you are receiving alerts about the packet loss, latencies, or other metrics that you fundamentally care for your business, you can actually ingest that alert by using API, and you can forward it over your remediation system, as part of which you can actually do something, to remediate the issue automatically. So, for example, we have customers that are doing exactly that. They take the signal that they receive from ThousandEyes, they consume it via API, they put it through the remediation system, and for example, they do BGP traffic engineering, as part of which they shift the traffic from one path to the other one. So this is like power that we bring to the table.
Yeah. And I think a simple way to think about ThousandEyes as well is it can act as your organization's insurance policy. So as you're making change within your environment, let's say you are migrating a site to an SD-WAN fabric. That's a significant change, and that could really impact the experience for users. And because ThousandEyes is a 24/7 testing platform, it allows people to manage that change, mitigate the risk, and then give the best outcome for all the business stakeholders and essentially the end users for those applications.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I think as a closing statement, I just want to say that we really have to think about this visibility problem as preceding anything we do in security. I really like the analogy of the needle in the haystack, and reducing our time and our effort mainly our efforts to remediate and respond to things that we see on the network, because that's what makes us poignant, and that's what makes our focused efforts be, impactful in how we run our operations. I thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you in the next Insight session.
Thank you.
Thank you.